We are, it's 11:04, Friday, August 5th, 2022, meeting of the Local Control Advisory Board. Happy to see so many people on. I'm going to run through the list of Local Control Advisory Board members. Just say here if you're here. I can't see everyone. And then we'll go to those that are being very, very supportive of our efforts. Obviously, I'm Dana Moore. I see our co-chair, my co-chair, Ashia Parker. Good morning. I cannot tell if Senator Corey McCray is on. We'll come back. Delegate Stephanie Smith.
Here. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. City Solicitor Jim Shea.
Good morning.
Super. Good morning. Police Commissioner Michael Harrison and/or Andy Smullian. I know that Shantae Jackson is not here. She reached out to me yesterday to let me know and to offer to help in any way that we need her to do. City Council President Nick Mosby. I see Aaron DeGraffenreich here in his stead. Is that right, Aaron?
Good morning. Yes, ma'am.
Right, GM. Is Nikki Thompson on also for? Okay.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Good morning. Good morning. Mark Washington.
Here.
Ray Kelly.
Here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Trey Murphy. Lydia Walther Rodriguez.
Here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Kaylin Young.
Present. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Bobby Cherry.
Good morning. I'm present, ma'am.
Super duper. Tyler Adamson.
Good morning.
Morning, Tyler. Natasha Mayhew is on. Adam Abadir. Oh, hey, Adam, in the chat. Lauren Parker. Does Adam need to be elevated? He said he's attending as a observer, I guess. Anthony Barksdale, Deputy Mayor Barksdale. Elena DePietro. I saw her earlier. Ben Guthorn. Stephanie Mavronis. Cassidy Anderson. And of course we have Haley Tilt.
This is Ben Guthorn. Sorry, I missed that earlier.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for being here. So today I want to start just a little different because we've had a different week. Last week, and I guess as results have been coming in, we have received confirmation that 3 of our members of the Local Control Advisory Board were successful in their efforts to become Democratic nominees for various state offices. So just lifting up Senator Corey McCray, want to say congratulations on his successful bid to return to the state legislature as the senator from the 45th district. Absolutely lifting up Delegate Stephanie Smith for her success in also becoming a delegate. Will return to Annapolis as a delegate from the 45th legislative district. Congratulations. And Kaylin Young was also successful. Why is this all coming out of the 45th? I don't know. I think that tells us something, but congratulations to Kaylin Young and his effort to become a Democratic candidate for a delegate for the 45th legislative district. Congratulations to all. The other thing I just wanted to lift up, I know that we had a series of National Night Out events across the city, and it was pretty awesome to see a lot of the photographs and the press reports about what was happening and led by members of our team. So congratulations to Ashia Parker, I know that Mark Washington always does. I try to end my night with Mark because they have the best grilled food for National Night Out. I missed it this year. But just really thank you. I know that Nick Mosby's office did a big event on the West Side, and this is really one of the more important things that we do. Not just this board, but those that are really engaged with policing and policing issues and building trust, across the city. So thank you to all of you who did that. We did have the mayor sign the bill for the charter to start the process for the charter amendment. That bill signing was, I believe that was last week. Pardon me for being confused on dates, but I think that was just last week. Thank you, Ashia Parker, Ray Kelly, Mark Washington, for being there and being and Kaylin Young for being part of that. We do have some important dates coming up. I just want you to put on your calendars. August 22, I believe that's a Monday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. We will hear from Barry Friedman. He'll be coming to us he'll be presenting on Chicago's system for police administration. And then on August 25th, and at this point, I'm going to segue it over to Co-Chair Parker, but on August 25th, we'll begin our community outreach, our public outreach for our work. So with that big intro, let me kick it over to Co-Chair Parker.
Good morning, everyone. So today we want to talk a little more about our August 25th event. So just to put it on the record, we're having our first outreach event on August 25th at, what time did we say, 6 o'clock? I believe that's it. Either 5:30 or 6 o'clock. We'll definitely confirm. So I did speak with Lauren. Lauren's not on, is she, Natasha? So I spoke with Lauren from the mayor's office.
She's joining. Sorry, I have to.
That's no problem.
There you go. Lauren.
I spoke with Lauren this morning, and we do have one change that I wanted to bring before the committee. We were not able to get the War Memorial Building. So Lauren is proposing, I forgot the name of the building, the name of the room, but short and sweet, it's one of the rooms that are inside of City Hall that holds 500 people. Not 500, I'm sorry, 100. So we are a little short on time because we definitely want to make sure that we're advertising and getting the word out. Is everyone okay with that change?
I think you're talking about the Curran Room, which is right across the hall from up on the fourth floor.
Yes. Are we okay with that move to just move this one forward? We're also planning to meet on Tuesday at 2 p.m. And from there, I want to discuss the next meeting so we can make sure we have the community space locked in, date and time, and all of that kind of stuff. So now I'll take any objection, and if we don't hear anything or see anything in the chat, I'll let Lauren move forward. All righty. I'll pass it back.
Okay, so I'm really excited that we have a date, we have a time, and we have a location. And Ashia did get some budget for light refreshments. We won't need much for this first meeting, and I'm hoping that we have an overwhelming response and have to manage our guests at City Hall. I'm going to ask Aaron DeGraffenreich, right, and perhaps Natasha and someone from the mayor's side, just to make sure that building security knows that we're coming, we're going to be there, we're going to have guests, that the folks at the front desk have their protocol to make sure people get in safely, blah blah blah, all those details. That is the only ask for August 25th. And of course we got to talk about the agenda, but Haley, are you ready to walk us through the PowerPoint? And also, did Adam get elevated? He did. Okay.
I elevated Adam. Lawrence here. Before Haley starts, I'll give just a little bit of context. So, and to build on what Shia had noted. So the 25th would be the first of a series of public meetings. This one, we wanted to ensure they're around the state. And so Haley is the MOGR Summer Fellow, and as many of you know, she's been joining these meetings throughout the summer and has been doing significant amount of work for us behind the scenes, helping to do research on models of local control, and also to help connect us with our speakers from other cities. And so she played a really big role in getting us the speaker that we'll have on the 22nd that will be talking about Chicago. So as part of her work for the summer, she has put together a bit of a draft report. Her report would be part of what we ultimately put forward in December, as this board has to put a final report in December. And so we will be sharing that with this group, but it is a working document. Her work this summer did focus on researching various cities, the models of local control, and talking to stakeholders to get more background. And so that portion of our ultimate final report, she will be significantly contributing to. And as part of that work, she created some one-pagers for these cities that we will also be sharing with you all. And an example of that was one we sent around before we heard from St. Louis County that basically gave a brief rundown of the way things were structured there. So with that, as we are having these public meetings, starting with the one on the 25th, Haley did some work to pull together a PowerPoint that would help to explain in simple terms kind of the board's work, what local control is and those models of local control. And so we wanted to give her the opportunity to share that draft PowerPoint now. And as Ashia noted, there'd be another meeting on Tuesday of the outreach committee. Between now and then, and of course, as work continues, we will share these actual copies of the document with the board so that you guys could give us feedback. But we also appreciate feedback from the larger board today before we meet Tuesday to, continue all the outreach work. So just wanted to give that context before Haley presented. And then now, Haley, I am going to turn it over to you, and you should have the ability to present now.
I see that. Okay, great. All right. So hopefully everyone can see this. Is it like full screen now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, great. So yeah, this is just a quick slide deck I put together that I thought would be a helpful way to break down the work of the LCAP. So I start with some quick terms and abbreviations, kind of laying out police department, PD, that's an abbreviation I use a lot, police chief, because that's a term that gets used interchangeably with police commissioner. And Baltimore's sort of unique in calling our police chief a police commissioner. So just want to kind of clarify that for folks when we're comparing to other cities' models, defining local control and defining the LCAP. And then just kind of laying out the bare bones, right? Baltimore is the only municipality in Maryland that doesn't control its own police department. Folks sometimes say that Baltimore is the only city in the United States that doesn't control its own police department. That's actually not true. Kansas City still doesn't have control of its PD, but true for us in the state. And then kind of sketching out some of the consequences of that. So the fact that neither the police commissioner nor city council can change standards for hiring, promoting, or firing officers. That the city council cannot create oversight bodies or change the structure and powers of bodies like the Civilian Review Board, and that the city council can't pass legislation about police department policy, such as regulating the use of weapons or surveillance technology, and that these are things that we need to go to the General Assembly for. Okay. And then I lay out a little of the history of local control, starting with the state takeover of BPD, with the rise of the Know Nothing Party, and the sort of bloody elections in 1856. And then in 1967, when the mayor regained the power to appoint the commissioner. And then sort of moving into more recent history, with the passage of local control at the General Assembly. And then now what's going on here, where we're in the process of figuring out what these charter amendments are going to look like. And really briefly explain the nature of the charter amendment as written. So we'll make BPD a city agency instead of a state agency. However, the city council still won't be able to pass legislation impacting the department. Without additional tweaks, Baltimore will still have to turn to the General Assembly when we want to pass laws to change BPD policy. So just trying to lay out as simply as possible where we are right now. Okay, and then the role of the Local Control Advisory Board in that, it's responsible for gathering community input, researching models for local control, so that it can propose the best structure for local government of BPD. And then explaining that we've interviewed other municipalities and that there is a range of structures. I think like my research this summer has shown me that there are as many different models for local control as there are municipalities across the United States. But in general, those tend to sort of fall into three broad types. And so I've picked 3 cities that I think are most emblematic of different administrative structures: Minneapolis, Seattle, and Chicago. So in Minneapolis, you have strong mayoral control and a strong chief of police. In Seattle, you still have a strong mayor and chief of police, but you also have a fairly empowered city council and fairly empowered civilian oversight boards. And then in Chicago, where I think is pretty much the most progressive city in terms of how they're structuring their police department, where they have a community commission, district councils that are directly elected. And then the mayor, chief of police, and city council still play a role, still have like a clear set of responsibilities and powers, but the community commission is sort of the chief decision-making body. I go into these in a little more depth. I've tried to sort of illustrate how power is shared between these different branches with some visuals. So again, Minneapolis with a strong mayor and chief, weak council, and weak civilian oversight. And then I've sketched out what role each of those bodies plays, with the mayor setting public safety priorities and with the power of appointment of the chief of police. The chief of police, who is in charge of all department policy and operations. The city council, who really doesn't exercise any legislative oversight over MPD policy for the most part. And then the Police Conduct Oversight Commission, which has investigative powers, but does not actually have any enforcement powers, right? They solely provide recommendations. And they don't have funding for a large professional staff. And then I kind of try to sketch some pros and cons, right? So with any strong executive model, you have quick decision making. You don't have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And this model would be fairly congruent with other counties in the state of Maryland, including PG County, Montgomery County, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel. And then in terms of cons, you don't really have an opportunity to have consistent oversight of police department policy. And our police advisory board matrix would continue in, so, Minneapolis Police Advisory Board has sort of limited enforcement powers, and isn't necessarily a body that generates deeper trust on the part of the community. Seattle is similar in a lot of respects, except that the city council exercises substantial legislative oversight for Seattle Police Department. So, for example, the police department needs to gain prior authorization for any major expansion of surveillance technology prior to implementation. And so that distinction of pre-authorization is pretty important. They also have a pretty robust civilian oversight matrix that's well funded. It's incorporated into the Inspector General's office as an independent body. It doesn't have enforcement powers, but it does make pretty significant strides towards greater transparency. And then in terms of pros and cons, that civilian board has improved transparency in the city. The council does have an opportunity to provide meaningful legislative oversight. In terms of cons, anytime you have more cooks in the kitchen, right, you're going to have more politicized policy setting, and there's going to be slowdowns. And then there is also a fiscal impact for having that professional staff for civilian oversight. And then in Chicago, they have delegated most of the executive and legislative powers to a civilian police commission. It's called the Community Commission, and they prior authorize all CPD policy. That commission also selects a candidate pool for the police chief, from whom the mayor then picks the final candidate. The Community Commission has ultimate decision-making power in terms of officer discipline in the case of complaints. And they have a investigative body with full investigative powers and a well-funded professional staff. They also have a structure of elected district councils. Chicago is kind of unique in terms of its police commission, because in most cities, the mayor appoints the commissioners and the city council confirms the commissioners. Chicago has taken it one step further, and their commissioners are selected from the district council level, and the district councilors are directly elected. So there is more of a structure of representative democracy there. The mayor still sets public safety priorities. They still ultimately select the police chief. And then the chief of police collaborates with civilian bodies and manages all operations. City council can still pass laws that affect CPD policy. So in terms of pros, the commission model tends to kind of insulate police. Oh boy, that's loud. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. All right. So in terms of pros, the commission model tends to sort of insulate police policy from political currents, right? And when you have changeovers in administration, that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire commission changes over. It means that all police policy undergoes proactive review instead of reactive review. And then the commission is in a place to facilitate transparency and community engagement. In terms of cons, you lose that sort of dynamic decision-making that can happen when you have a strong executive and a strong chief. Authority becomes more decentralized. And so that also means that when you have a lot of decision makers trying to arrive at, setting policy, you can have interpersonal conflicts that can lead to kind of a stagnancy. And then, of course, there's the fiscal impact as well. So in terms of what legislative oversight could look like, regardless of, what models, seem best for Baltimore, there are a lot of different ways that county councils and city councils across the country have exercised oversight for their police departments. So that ranges from police conduct, tactics and use of force, weapons and technology, civilian oversight, and data and reporting. So I've tried to give some examples from across the country in terms of police conduct. DC City Council has passed standards for police interacting with demonstrators in terms of tactics and use of force. Councils across the country have banned certain forms of force like chokeholds and no-knock warrants. In terms of weapons and technology, I mentioned earlier about Seattle City Council requiring SPD to gain prior authorization. Civilian oversight, this is huge right now for the state of Maryland because of the Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021. City councils across the state are trying to figure out what to do. And then in terms of data and reporting, Montgomery County, but many other cities and counties have passed legislation requiring certain types of data and reporting. And then finally, I just want to kind of lay out what a police commission is. Baltimore obviously does not have a police commission, but this is a model used by a lot of different cities where power, both executive and legislative power, is delegated to a separate commission or board. Then it's meant to be more insulated from politics and more focused on policing so that commissioners can provide that sort of proactive review. And we had a great chance to talk with the commissioners from St. Louis County last week. So some of the roles that commissions and boards have the power to do, set or review the policies for their department, review civilian and officer complaints and disciplinary matters, select or to help select the police chief. There's a lot of different ways that that can be structured, engage the community and hold open meetings to improve transparency. So cities and counties differ. I know I mentioned Chicago, which has kind of a more direct or rather representative democracy way of electing their commissioners, but usually commissioners are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. Burlington, Detroit, Los Angeles, Chicago, St. Louis County, many other municipalities use this model. So I have kind of left this slide mostly blank because I don't know how the LCAB would like to solicit community feedback, but I imagine this is where that would happen. So that's all I've put together thus far, and I'd love to, hear what people, hear what folks think.
Thank you so much, Haley. And so as noted, we will also share this out for more detailed feedback because I know Haley threw a lot at you guys with this PowerPoint, but we also wanted to make sure it was shared with the broader group. As Ashia had noted, we have our first community meeting later this month, so we wanted the most ability to get initial thoughts, things we're missing as we're talking, that should be raised to the public, etc.
Well, let me start by saying, good job. Clearly you put a lot of effort into it. This is really, really helpful. It's what we've been looking for, waiting for, to sort of have a comprehensive look at all the possibilities. And so thank you, Haley. You will be very much missed. I think today is her last day. Just know that you can come back anytime. Anytime that your schedule allows. Once you're part of this team, you're part of this team. We're not going to let you go. So, with that, I guess we'll just throw it open for any questions or comments. I didn't see anything in the chat. So,
We do have some hand raised. Bob
okay.
Cherry and Delegate Smith and Lydia Walter Rodriguez, from what I could see, have their hands raised.
Okay, great. Thanks. I swear, I'm going to end up leaving this board with never having figured out how to see hands raised. Okay, we'll start with Bob Cherry. Was that the first name? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And hey, Haley, thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. I'm sorry I'm not on video today, just to thank you for that. But so just a couple quick questions to the early part of your slide presentation, because I'm hearing now that it is your last day, so good luck in where you go. But when you turn this over, I guess, to you, Natasha, and the two chairs, my only suggestion, and I'm willing to help out with this, and I'm sure the police department will, in the early part of the slide, Haley, you mentioned about hiring standards and firing of police officers, and I just think it's important that we get to the public exactly, how it happens. The standards are actually set by the Maryland Police Training Commission, and it's statewide, and they set the minimum standards. Each police department in turn can always raise the standards. So if we wanted to raise it to say a 2-year college degree and or military, we could do that. But every police department, not just Baltimore City, is set by the MPTC. And there's a new name for that. I think they added one other acronym for the MPTC. But I just think we should clarify that for the public. That has nothing to do with local control. And then the other thing that I think has nothing to do with local control either, in that early slide, you talked about our police commissioner being unable to fire police officers. That's actually not true either. There are, again, standards set by the former LOBR, the Law Enforcement, Bill of Rights, which is now included in the Accountability Act. But the police commissioner in Baltimore does still set the policy of the agency. And as a sergeant, myself, or any other police officer, if we violate those policies, the BPD can in turn charge us administratively, and they can terminate us as long as it's within, the Bill of Rights. So I just think, Natasha and Danny, we should just clarify that. That's all. Other than that, I think it's well done. I like the fact that you went through Minneapolis, Seattle, and Chicago as like 3 different cities in terms of how we, form a commission. But I just wanted to bring that to the group's attention. And I'm willing to help on it in any way in terms of, aside from the city solicitor and the BPD, in terms of how that actually does work, so we can get that slide to be accurate. That's all.
Great. Thanks so much for that feedback and clarification.
Yep, you got it, Hallie. Good luck to you.
Who was after Bobby? And thank you, Bobby Cherry. That very helpful.
So you had Delegate Smith.
And then Lydia.
Oh, hello. Should I wait?
Oh, no. You're up.
Okay.
You're in the
Okay, no,
box.
great. No, and Haley, thank you so much for putting this together. It was very thoughtfully, arranged, and also good luck in your future endeavors as well. But I wanted to know, and maybe I missed this, but I'm familiar with all 3 cities. And in a past life worked to represent the good people of Minneapolis. So my question is also, despite the fact that we have these different forms of local control, I mean, I know Seattle had a federal consent decree. Have we considered the overlay of what cities that we've looked at have had, kind of federal oversight? Is this current version of their their local control, has it been adjusted based on being subject to a consent decree, or did it exist prior? Because I think one of the big things about managing expectations for the public related to local control is I've told most people probably on this call that every other city I'm aware of that's been under a federal consent decree had local control. So this notion that it will erase impropriety or challenges as it relates to policing, I think we need to manage expectations related to that based on the fact that we just listened to a review of cities that I think have well-noted challenges with public trust and policing, despite the fact that they have variations of local control. So I just want to make sure in our public engagement, we're managing expectations related to that. And then also, I think something very critical that was kind of woven throughout the presentation is that depending on how you set things up and what on-ramps you give for public oversight and accountability of law enforcement, we're already dealing at a very low level of public trust. And I mean, on a weekly basis, we're inundated with, stories covering criminal acts by people that are entrusted to uphold the law. So when you have a populace that is kind of just seemingly on an unending rope of like just hearing about reasons why they shouldn't trust their law enforcement, I think any path forward that suggests that oversight of the public is not that important, or robust oversight is not that important. I think almost anything else we do will matter very little if the public believes they have no real oversight of their police department from a civilian perspective, not just simply what we're erecting here in terms of a local control dynamic. So I just wanted to lift that up, as these are cities that have all had some tortured realities with policing, though they have local control. And so I just want to make sure we're managing public expectations.
Thank you for that. And I see Natasha's ready to talk too. I mean, very good suggestions. One of the things that I definitely want us to be very well aware of and out front as we're doing our outreach is the consent decree doesn't go away no matter what. No matter what form of control, no matter what form of management we have, the consent decree doesn't go away until the underlying causes and problems that brought us the consent decree are resolved. And, I'll stop there if Solicitor Shea wants to add anything, but we did have that presentation by the consent decree monitors. We're real clear on that, and we need to be sure that we share that out. Trust, yeah. I mean, those are challenges, and how we navigate that is, to me, it's a concern, but it's also a delicate dance because, one of the things that I've heard consistently is that one of the elements of building trust is having Baltimore have control of its police department and manage its police department. So I really appreciate all of your points, Delegate Smith, and good things for us to be mindful of. So, Natasha, did you want to add? No pressure if you don't.
No, you hit on it. I was just going to say, yeah, those are all really good points. And I do know when Haley was doing the research, some of these cities are also under consent decrees. And certainly as we are receiving this feedback, we'll incorporate it to make some of those things a bit more clear. We do want to ensure that there's understanding and balance that public trust aspect.
Yeah. And I think what you raised is a real foretelling of the kinds of questions that we should be prepared to answer as we go out to the public. Lydia?
You had Lydia next.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then Ray Kelly.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to weigh in here as we start to brainstorm and develop ways to ensure there's community engagement throughout this entire process. And, I think this was a really great, overview. And I'm wondering if we can put together maybe some one-pagers of a synopsis of the different types of local control that can be digestible for anybody, to pick up that one pager and not just be aware of the information, but also have an opportunity to weigh in via potentially a public comment period where folks could weigh in about the different types of local controls and give feedback. And also, taking opportunity of the public engagement outreach that we're getting ready to launch on the 25th and making sure that there's a component in those areas for community members to be able to give their feedback on the different types of local controls, whether it's a listening session, a dialogue, or a questionnaire that they're able to fill out in these different outreach events. And also, as we're coming into, post-election, making sure that we are, doing a public comment period for folks to be able to weigh in again on where we are and where folks want to give input of where we want to be. Community engagement is going to be very crucial to building that trust as we transition, and so we want to be able to capture community data in our final report.
Thank you. And I will note, Haley did also create one-pagers for a couple of more cities other than the 3 she highlighted. So we'll also send those around for everyone to review.
Before I forget, one thing that we need in terms of what we hand out is translation. I think there are 3 or 4 languages that are most commonly spoken in the city, and I should know it off the top of my head, but I would love to be able to translate whatever we hand out into those 4 different languages. And for our in-person, we need to make sure we have ASL, American Sign Language, present. And, my office can help with that, but I've sort of lost track of who has the contract for that, but we just make sure we have it.
I just want to chime in, ladies. We can talk about it more on Tuesday, but we also discussed having translators at the event. So I just want to know, talk more on Tuesday about where we are with that. And Lydia, are you coming Tuesday? Do you know? Hopefully it's on your calendar.
I'll be there Thursday.
Okay, great. So we can make sure that that is taken care of in a proper way. Thank you.
So thank you, Lydia. Very well stated and good direction for us. And yes, Adam, those are the languages. Okay.
Then you had Ray Kelly.
Yep, Ray.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, Haley, for the presentation. And I just want to elevate Delegate Smith's statement and the importance of what is going to get the community to buy in, which is the possibility of BPD being accountable to the city, so that civilian oversight becomes a huge piece of how we're actually selling this. And just to piggyback on Haley's work, it would be wise to refer to the CODIF report, who also went to a lot of cities. We also got the input and ideas of probably over 1,000 residents in Baltimore City. So that's some work that's already been done and discussed as well.
I'm sighing because I'm a big fan of the CODIF report. And I think we circulated it once before. We will circulate it again because there's a lot in there. And
the CODIF report definitely incorporates a lot of components of what Haley pointed out in the other cities. And we kind of went that step of trying to cater it to the situation in Baltimore. So I think it could be helpful.
I agree. Just making a note that we recirculate it after this call so that everyone has it at the top of their email or at the top of their minds. It was a lot of work and it was a good outcome. Ashia, Natasha, any other comments, any other hands raised?
No, I don't see any other hands raised. And I don't see anything else in the chat either.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions, comments?
This is Ben Guthorn with Legislative Reference.
Okay. Hey, Ben.
Haley, during the course of your research, did you by chance pull the authorizing legislation that empower and ultimately create these different means of local control?
So, most of what I was looking at were city charters. So in that regard, yes. Although it's interesting, a lot of the time, the language that empowers these different bodies it's not super clear cut whose job is what. It's like a matter of, tradition and the best judgment of the city law department. But in Chicago is an interesting case, and I hope that y'all can learn more from Barry about this. But they're particularly interesting because their council has just recently passed legislation completely overhauling their administrative structure. So theirs is spelled out in very, very clear terms about whose power is whose. But other cities, for the most part, there is extremely old charter language defining powers in very broad terms.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it'll be important to review those pieces as we get community input and as this board continues to think about what structures would work best for our city, given our history and the future that we want to create. Obviously, we've learned through the charter amendment process, that it is time consuming and the need to go back to the General Assembly. I just want to make sure that we remain cognizant of the different legislative, I wouldn't call them hurdles, but just kind of necessary actions that will accompany this process as we go forward.
Okay. With that, I'm going to ask Elena and Ben just to talk about the important dates in terms of the charter amendment process and the milestones that we still have to meet. It's in your hands, but we should still all be aware of what those dates are. I know that Elena was working on the language that has to be submitted to the state to actually get onto the ballot. Am I recalling that wrong or right?
No, you are correct. Elena is on. It looks like she's unmuted, but Elena, we can't hear you if you're talking.
And okay, so we'll get that.
This is Ben. I can speak to it briefly. Elena is working on that. You're absolutely correct. The deadline is actually today to submit all of those materials to the State Board of Elections, so they are reviewed in time for them to be placed on the ballot in time for the election in November. So I know that Elena and her team have been hard at work over the past few weeks putting those together, making sure everything is perfect. After that, as far as I understand, we wait to receive any feedback from the Board of Elections, but at this point, we're at a pause in terms of taking immediate action.
Okay, great. I think, well, thank you for that, Ben, and thank you, Elena, and your team for doing that. If you could, after this, if you could just, if it's appropriate, if you could share with us what was submitted to the state so that we're aware of it. And that's going to be important language for us to have as we move forward with the education process. So, okay, thank you. Natasha, Ashia, anything else that we should cover today? We've got our dates coming up 5, 6, 7, August 9 for a meeting, August 22 for a presentation by folks from Chicago, and August 25 for the community meeting at City Hall.
Right. And I'll send, I know I sent a reminder of the 2 upcoming meetings. I'll add the 22nd, and you'll get a pretty thorough email, which includes the materials, the slide deck that Haley put together, and the one-pagers, again, so we could solicit more. I took very detailed notes on what everyone was saying, but just if anyone wants to give it another look over, has thoughts, want to submit things for our review, and as Ashia noted, the outreach committee will meet again Tuesday, so it'll be very helpful as we're preparing for that. And I'll just note that Elena is having audio issues, but she noted in the chat that the charter amendment has been submitted to the Board of Elections.
Awesome. Thank you, Elena, and your team. Yeah, as you know, I think you're the best to ever do it. You're fabulous. I know that we're in really, really good hands, and thank you for all that you did. I know you're working overtime trying to get all of the charter amendments done. So thank you. All right, folks, I think we're at 11:53. We're ready to wrap unless anyone has anything else you want to add, ask, question, announce. Oh, I do have one more thing. It's summer. There are things that are going on in the city. There are gatherings, there are events. If you are aware of any public gathering, either virtually or in person, where you think the audience would be open to hearing about our work and what we're trying to do, please invite us. There are a lot of us on here. We can plug and play. Anybody that feels like they want to get out and talk about the work of the LCAB and what we're going to be doing as a in terms of community outreach, let us know. I could ask that Natasha be the fulcrum for that, but don't be shy. Just invite us. We'll come. All right. Have a good weekend. Stay cool. Stay hydrated. Sunscreen if you're going to be out and about. It's pretty wicked out there. All right.
Be
Take
safe,
care,
everybody. Have a good one.
Be fun. Everyone have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Lovely working with you guys. Have a good one.
Bye, Haley. Thank you for all that you did to move us forward. You've been awesome.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.